India in a strong position after 2 days of the second test match. They lead by 81 with 5 wickets in hand, so excellent for them. And then the other test match as well in beautiful Mount Maunganui, New Zealand scoring over 400, and then Pakistan battling to 30 for 1 off 20 overs by the close. There's so much cricket going on. What is it? In the UK, it's 8:15 in the morning, so that test match between Sri Lanka and South Africa will be underway on the second day as well. And Sri Lanka having a very good first day, 340 for 6 against South Africa. There was a remarkable batting early on. Yes, all sorts of shots being played. It was like a one-day international at the start of that match, test match. Players looking to hit the ball over the top inside the first hour. Anyway, it was a very good day's play. Lots of test match cricket going on around the country. And just a note as well that you can hear ball-by-ball commentary on the third day of the Australia-India match later. But ball-by-ball commentary now on the Big Bash. Darcy Short is out there. I haven't let Steve Finn have a word yet, but I'm sure he'll have plenty of words over the next 3 hours for us. Steve, welcome back to the commentary box.
Thank you.
And David Milan in for Hobart. He's someone you would have played with quite a bit over the years. I mean, are you surprised as anyone that he's the world's #1 T20 player, #1 ranked T20 player?
No, I don't think I'm surprised. I think you look at his consistency in all the leagues he's ever played in and stuff. I think that he's always given himself a good opportunity to do well. I think his preparation's meticulous in the way he goes about it, so it's no surprise that given he's stepped up to international level and the the level of preparation and things that you can have at international level, he's obviously using that to best effect, and it's making him the best in the world. So yeah, he's doing incredibly well.
Yeah, it's been a remarkable story for David Milan. I think he's probably surprised himself a little bit. I mean, I don't think he considers himself to be the best T20 player in the world, but he's right up there, top of the rankings. He's not out there at the moment. It's Ben McDermott who's opening. The first ball from Bartlett is forced away by Short into the offside, out into the covers, and there is no run. Milan was down on the team sheet to come in at the top of the order, but Ben McDermott is in there. He's a fine player as well, Ben McDermott. So we're underway. Hobart Hurricanes in their first over, batting first, and generally they've done reasonably well this season already, batting first. They're on away turf today though for the first time. Here is Bartlett, and that's crashed away by Short down towards the deep backward point, wide third man boundary, sliding stop on the rope. Short comes back for 2, and they are home comfortably for that second run. They beat the Adelaide Strikers by 11 runs. They beat the Sydney Sixers by 16 runs, although the Strikers also beat them on the chase as well, and they've won 1 game on the chase. So they've won a couple of matches batting first, and that's what they're doing today. 2 for no wicket in the first over. Bartlett goes in, bowls to Short. It's on the pads. He tries to clip it away into the onside. He struck on the pad. There's a appeal for LBW from Bartlett, but I think that was pitching outside the leg stump, and there was no run. 2 for no wicket in this first over of the match. Darcy Short, of course, the dasher at the top of the order. Not had he was given his chance for Australia. He's not really taken it, but in this form of the cricket and for the Hobart Hurricanes, he's been mighty successful for them. He made 72 in that victory against the Strikers off 48 balls. Bartlett bowls, forced away by the left-handed Short, square with the wicket, straight to point, and there is no run. 2 for no wicket in the first over. Just on that Australia-India test match, I don't know if you've seen it, Finney, Rahani's celebration after he scored his 100.
No,
basically
extravagant.
Completely the opposite. That's what I loved about it, actually. It was so understated. Bartlett bowls, big drive from Short, and I went past the inside edge. For a moment there I thought that was going to be thrown in the air by the wicketkeeper, but it must have swung after it went past the bat, because he was taking that down the leg side effectively, diving away to his right hand side.
Nice shape again here, Bartlett. The other night when we watched them, the humidity at Brisbane with a brand new ball, it can give the ball an opportunity to swing, and here bringing it back into the left-hander, cramping Darcy Short for room. It's been a good start.
Bartlett goes in, bowls to Short down the leg side. That swings down the leg side. That was very good ball to a right-hander, that one, swinging away, but to a left-hander. It was a wide down the leg side. It was taken by Pearson away to his right. Yeah, I love Rahani's celebration. He cuffed a boundary to deep backward point, strolled down the pitch. Absolutely no emotion whatsoever. Eventually just took his helmet off, just raised his bat and one hand to the crowd, just, you know, acknowledged the applause and put his helmet back on and got on with it. David Warner, it was not. 3 for no wicket. Last ball, the over, swung away by Short towards deep mid-wicket. Cracked away. That's a magnificent shot. Pedigree Darcy Short, that one. It was a bit short from the bowler, Bartlett, and Short hammered it away. And Hobart Hurricanes playing away in front of the Gabba crowd, so not much applause for that shot, but it deserves some. 7 for no wicket after the first over.
Slightly short from Bartlett. The ball before, he was trying to tuck Darcy Short up. He'd only gone for 2 runs off the first 5 balls of the over. Wanted to try and get out of the over, as is so important in T20 cricket. Got it wrong, gives him the extra ball, and Darcy Short almost knows exactly what he's trying to do then. Cramp him for room, not give him his arms on the offside. Gets it a bit wrong the other way, and Short swings it away to the mid-wicket boundary with ease and releases some pressure that could have been building in that first over.
When you're bowling the T20 match, are you conscious that the batsman, so 80% of the time, has a decent idea what you're going to bowl, or do you try, how much do you try to bluff the batsman?
Yeah, you try and be unpredictable, but also, especially on a ground such as this that's so big square, my way of getting out of an over in that situation.
Let's just watch Wildermuth go in and bowl to the right-handed McDermott. He's with him now, and McDermott plays defensively into the onside up to mid-on, and there's no run.
And we actually employed it quite a lot this year at Middlesex, was to put a deep square leg and a deep mid-wicket out, so the batsman literally knows where you're going to bowl it. It's going to be on his hip, and then it's up to him whether he wants to take the risk of, as long as the bowler executes their skill of bowling it around their hip, it's then up to the batsman to decide whether he wants to take those 2 fielders on. And especially with a big boundary as there are at the Gabba, it gives the batsman something else to think about.
7 for no wicket, start of the second. Wildermuth, right arm over the wicket, rushes in, bowls to McDermott, who comes forward and drives to mid-off, and there's no run. And do you ever change from that plan? Do you ever think, well, he knows I'm going to bowl one on his hip, I'm going to bowl him a wide Yorker or something?
Well, sometimes in that scenario, a batsman will give themselves room outside the leg stump to try and open up the offside. So if you see them go early, you can just bowl it towards the wide line, and they literally can't reach it.
Yeah.
And it's not wide because it's within the wide line. So you do have to be quite precise, but it's little things like that mean the first over goes for 3 instead of 7, which is quite a big swing.
Here is Wildermuth bowling to McDermott on middle stump, clipped away through mid-wicket, and they do have that man back forward a square on the onside, so it's 2 runs to McDermott, so he is underway, and the score goes to 9 for no wicket. The Hobart Hurricanes in the second over against the Brisbane Heat.
I also think in Australia the grounds are generally pretty big and the boundaries are pretty big, whereas in England we maybe have to be a bit more clever with the way that we bowl, because some of the grounds we play on are postage stamps. 9 for no wicket.
McDermott waits, Wildermuth bowls to him, McDermott drives but straight to mid-off again, and there is no run. What would be the smallest ground you play on?
Somerset's pretty small.
Yeah.
You've got all the people with their pitchforks breathing on you over the boundary down there. That's an interesting experience, especially if you're getting smashed around by them. It's actually quite a hostile atmosphere down there. But yeah, Somerset for the wicket / boundary dimensions combination is probably the smallest one that we play on.
Yeah. We'll be looking forward to your next trip to Taunton then.
I expect it anyway, to be honest.
Here's Wildermuth bowling to McDermott. McDermott tries to drive, gets an inside edge onto the pad there. The ball rolls away into the offside, and Wildermuth steps forward and picks up, and there is no run. 9 for no wicket. Coming to the end of the second over, and we were talking about this the other day. Richmond is quite small as well.
Yep.
If you play one of your outgrounds.
Yep, and you have to wear a box when you field at Richmond because it's a cabbage patch, the outfield. So yeah, you see a lot of guys go running towards the ball, try and pick it up, and it's whistling past their face or around the groin area, which is something to make you a little more tentative.
Wildermuth moves in and bowls to McDermott on the pads. He tries to turn it away. Might well have just come off the pad there. Goes back of a square for a single. And that is the end of the over. So Wildermuth with a tidy first over, just 3 off it. And so far, Hobart Hurricanes making no more than steady progress. 10 for no wicket after the first 2 overs of their innings. We're short on 6, and Ben McDermott on 3. Latest match in the Big Bash, which has been a bit stop-start so far because of the day-night test match, and then over Christmas as well. They have a few days off. Tournament going through to early February, so it really picks up now in sort of constant cricket. And we've had some mixed games really. We've had a couple of dramatic run chases. One yesterday, that in their very understated way, the Australians describing it as the greatest Big Bash match ever, which Daniel Norcross was part of the commentary, and he's with us today. Fine innings from Hughes, caught on the boundary going for the 4 that would give them victory and his century, but then no matter, next ball it was scuffed inside edge to the boundary for 4. But a new over from Bartlett. McDermott turns it away towards deep backward square leg, and they come back for 2 runs. McDermott moves to 5. Yeah, it felt like this last few days with that game we did with Brisbane losing by 2 runs, and the game yesterday, Sydney Sixers winning in the last over, taking 20 off the last over. Feels like the tournament's got going, although the test match is sort of overshadowing things in series. McDermott plays that into the offside. Oh, it's dropped in the covers. Unbelievable drop that is. Bartlett can't believe it. It was like a lob to the cover fielder. McDermott playing away from his body on the up into the offside, and it's spooned up, and it was about as easy a catch as you could possibly have. You could argue in professional sport there's no easy catch, but I mean,
it's your quintessential goober, I think. He's barely got a hand on it. It's gone straight through his hands, hit him in the stomach.
Astonishing drop. Bartlett bowls, swipe from McDermott straight to mid-off, and there's no run. I'm just trying to identify the guilty party there.
At least the next ball didn't go for a boundary. That's always a real rubbing salt into the wound scenario when the next ball goes for 4 and you're trudging back to your mark, cursing the fielder.
Twelve for no wicket in the 3rd over. A life for McDermott. Bartlett goes in, bowls to McDermott, comes down the pitch and smashes this over long on. Well, it wasn't the ball afterwards that went to the boundary, it was the one after that. That was hoofed down the ground over long on by McDermott. He really made decent contact with that, and that's our first 6 of the match. McDermott to 11, and the score to 18 for no wicket, the Hobart Hurricanes in the 3rd over.
Yeah, that really hurts. Really hurts. The bowler, he's been disciplined. A slight bit of a way shape on or around the off stump, forcing the batsman to try something, makes that opportunity of a breakthrough. It's dropped. 2 balls later, gets hit for 6. The Hobart Hurricanes move on to 18 for none off 2.4 overs, but those 3 balls again proving quite a swing in the context of these early forays of the game.
18 for no wicket then. Bartlett, I'm quite aggrieved at that. I mean, I cannot believe the catch went down in the covers. Here's Bartlett bowling down the leg side, turned away by McDermott towards deep backward square leg. Should be 2 more here. Swept up on the deep backward square leg boundary. So 2 more to the total, and the score goes to 20 for no wicket in the 3rd over.
I think when you get dropped like that as a batsman, and this is definitely my mentality when I get dropped, is it's like a free wicket. You see it as a free wicket and just play as many shots as you possibly can. It
was James Baisley who dropped the catch. New man making his debut today. Bartlett goes in, and McDermott comes forward and drives that towards wide mid-on. They're off for a single. The throw hits the stumps, the non-striker's end, but McDermott was easily home. So 21 for no wicket after 3 overs. Well, he's only making his debut today for the Brisbane Heat. I don't know, a bit of nerves out there. He's only played 1 first-class match and 1 T20, but I mean, if he's playing grade cricket on a Saturday afternoon, he'd catch that with his eyes closed.
I think his mates would be fining him in the clubhouse afterwards for dropping that one. Yeah.
as easy a catch as you'll see at professional level.
Well, not quite as easy as the one we saw Joe Denley drop at.
Oh no, that's right, yeah. Well, in a way,
that was like a 3-year-old's catch, that one.
In the Test match at Hamilton. Yeah, Aggies wanted to call it doing a Denley, didn't he, afterwards?
Yeah.
If you drop one like that, you do a Denley. Well, that was from Baisley. Talking about Joe Denley, he's inverted commas joined up with the Brisbane Heat, but he can't play yet because he's in quarantine. He's got to complete that. 21 for no wicket after 3 overs. He's the replacement for Dan Lawrence. He's playing his final game today. Wildermuth bowls. McDermott drives into the onside. Seems to have had a lot of strikes so far, McDermott, and indeed he has. That was his 13th ball. Darcy Short would be pawing the ground at the other end. He's only faced 6 balls so far. 23 for no wicket. Start of the 4th over. McDermott has moved on to 16. Australia dropped quite a few catches today at the MCG. I think it was 5 in all. Just sense the growing frustration of the Australian commentators on Fox. McDermott on strike. Wildermuth bowls. That's heaved away by McDermott, but straight to long on, where Steketee this time makes no mistake. Again, that was a straightforward catch. Long on boundary. Steketee catches it, and that drop from Baisley not too costly, although Wildermuth gets the wicket rather than Bartlett, and that's the opening wicket of the match. 23 for 1. Hobart Hurricanes in the 4th over.
Interesting, long on goes back there. It's clearly a plan to McDermott. The over before hit Bartlett directly over his head. So here Wildermuth challenging McDermott to say, well, if you want to do it again, you're going to have to take that fielder on at long on. He obliges, tries to take him on and gets nowhere near any of it, and plinks it straight to the man at long on. But there, I think intelligent bowling and using the bigger boundaries here at the Gabba, it's a good way to try and force the batsman to play outside of his comfort zone, because sometimes it can just be all too easy if you have a more regulation field. The batsmen find it easier to manipulate the ball around. And now I presume they've crossed there and Darcy Short will be on strike, but David Malan is typically a slow starter in T20 cricket. He'll take his time. We saw it a few times in the recent series with South Africa, where you can build dots and you can build pressure on him early. He's been good enough recently to be able to come through that and to be able to come and win games. But here's a good opportunity for the Brisbane Heat to try and build some dots and try and bring some pressure back onto the Hobart Hurricanes batsmen. The
umpires have ruled that the batsman did not cross. I feel they should have done. The ball went out to long on, but they did not cross, so Malan will be on strike. Yeah, it's been a real feature of his international batting that I've seen anyway. He does just absorb balls to start with. He almost feels as if he's putting pressure on himself, and then he's able to release it with a couple of boundaries. Here is Wildermuth bowling to Malan, who strokes that nicely into the offside, but it's fielded by Baisley in the covers, and Steketee goes over to him and gives him a pat on the bottom for stopping that.
You won't find David getting out caught at long on in the first 3 or 4 overs of his innings, unless the score is unbelievably high that the team is chasing. He'll play classic shots like we've just seen there. A lovely cover drive. It doesn't faze him too much if they're not finding the gap straight away, as he knows that they're coming straight out the middle of the bat, as that ball did.
There's a slip in for him. Wildermuth bowls, and Malan goes after that, looks to run it down towards third man and misses it, and it's through to Pearson. Have you feeling a little bit of pressure out there when you'll suddenly billed as the best T20 player in the world, and they've been waiting for him to turn up as well and be available to play. You want to produce.
Yeah, with that comes pressure, doesn't it? And he's been sat in a hotel room for 14 of the last 16 days, and he won't have hit balls, which I know David very well would have hurt him a lot. He'll have had a tennis ball against the wall or something like that, I'd have thought.
Wildermuth bowls to Malan. Malan gets his first run down towards third man. So back cut, really. So he is underway. His first big bash run in the Hobart Hurricanes purple strip. And the score advances to 24 for 1. Coming to the end of the 4th over, end of the power play. 1 ball left in the 4 over power play Be with us on our Big Bash coverage on 5 Live Sports Extra and BBC Sounds and BBC Sport website. You won't know that won't necessarily know that 4 power play overs at start, then 2 later on. The surge after the 10 over mark. Wildermuth, right arm over the wicket, now bowls to the left-handed Short, and Short gets his 7th ball, dabs that into the offside, and there's no run. Short had a great deal of strikes so far. Short 6, Milan 1. The Hurricanes 24 for 1 after 4 overs, a side that's won 3 of their 4 matches against a side that's lost all 3 of their games so far after finishing 7th last season at Brisbane Heat. They're having a bit of a diner at the moment, but there's plenty of time to pick up, especially with 5 qualifying for the latter stages of the competition.
So there's 6 teams?
Five
how many
qualify.
Teams are there? 8 teams.
8 teams, 5 qualify. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you want to finish as high up in the group table as possible, because it gives you a better chance of getting to the final, but you do get more chances. I don't know what it does. I mentioned it before. What it does, it pretty much guarantees that every match matters until the end of the league stage. Although it does seem odd to play for about 6 weeks and eliminate 3 teams. It's 2020. Right, Dan Lawrence. Dan Lawrence is going to bowl his leg breaks. But out of the power play. Last game for the Heat. Moves in round the wicket. First ball is reverse swept by Milan for 4. Nicely dealt with. Almost dismissed from his presence, really.
So I'm the #1 T20 batsman in the world.
Don't bowl me that
part-time off spin can't bowl at me. You know, with Dan Lawrence that there's going to be no turn, really. His danger ball is the one that skids back in. He's an off spinner, so there's no real purchase there. He bowls off the wrong foot almost, and he will just try and slide it into David Milan and cramp him for room, but that was too wide to begin.
It's quite an unusual action, isn't it, from Lawrence? He goes in now and bowls, and that one is driven by Milan up towards long off, and they go through for a single.
Yeah, they can be awkward to face. They when you're facing them, they look a bit funny, so you get confused. I think he does very well against Middlesex. Whenever we play Essex, he always seems to get 3 or 4 wickets against us.
Well, Milan would have seen a bit of him. 29 for 1. Short on 6, Milan on 6. Here is Lawrence bowling, driven by Short into the offside towards deep extra cover. This is going out towards the boundary. It'll be pulled inside the rope by Heaslett, who sends in the return, and Short comes back for 2, takes him to 8. And Lawrence has already gone for 7 off his first 3 balls. I don't think I've knowingly seen Lawrence bowl before. It's a high stepping action, very high action bowls, and it's forced away into the offside by Short towards extra cover, and there is no run.
Something we saw the other night here at the Gabba was the Adelaide strikers put themselves under immense pressure in this first power play by not using the size of the ground.
Go, Max!
Lawrence bowls, played away by Short, beats extra cover this time, goes out towards wide long off. Steckety comes round and sends in the return.
Exactly like that. We saw the opening batsman for the Adelaide strikers trying to hit boundaries constantly and struggling to do so and building pressure on themselves, whereas there it's a basic cricket shot, a back foot punch down the ground, but they get 2 runs for it, which keeps that scoreboard ticking over. 9 off this over so far with 1 ball to go.
Here's Lawrence to complete the over, bowls a bit short, chopped away by Short towards deep point, and they're through for a single. So that's the end of Lawrence's over. He's gone for 10 off his first over. 5 overs gone, 34 for 1 the Hurricanes. Short has 11, Milan has 6. More from Stephen Finn, and then it will be Daniel Norcross.
A steady start here for the Hobart Hurricanes. They've been intelligent. They'll have watched the match the other night between the strikers and the Heat and realised that you have to use these big boundaries here at the Gabba to be able to keep the scoreboard ticking over in the first 6 overs. Even if you're not scoring boundaries, you can keep going at 7, 8 and over, and whilst putting the bad ball away, it gives you an opportunity to get that scoring rate up. and they would have seen as the game went on that it got easier as you went through the innings to score the runs, and that's the trend that we saw in both innings.
Hello there.
Good morning.
Yes, and it is a good morning. Beautiful Christmassy morning. My favourite time of the year, this bit, when Christmas is over.
With two Grinches. And you are dressed in green as well today, which is
I am
very Grinch-like.
I've got Christmas socks on. I've got the full work. I've got Christmas socks, Christmas jumper.
We had a Zoom family quiz on Christmas Day.
Oh, yeah.
My dad wore a black bar humbug Christmas hat.
Stickety into the attack. His first ball's pushed out to the offside, straight to short extra cover by Short. And there's no run.
I feel like he's of the same line of thinking of you two gentlemen.
He sounds very much a man after my own heart, yes.
Yeah, I think he'd relate to a lot of your sentiments, yeah.
To me, Christmas begins with the first ball of the Boxing Day Test match, because it means that Christmas is over and we can then start to move into just
What, you mean you don't
sport.
wake up at 6 a.m. looking for your presents under the tree?
No. There are none. Stiggity in, driven gloriously in the air over that extra cover. This time it's going to make it onto the boundary sponge from Short, despite the fact there's a long off position. He only had about 5 yards to make to his right, but he didn't stand a chance. That was hit with great power just over the hand of the leaping fielder at short extra cover. 38 for 1. This is a good start for the Hurricanes. Doesn't sound like a lot, but in the context of this big bash, we've seen a lot of kind of 22s for 2, that sort of thing at the end of the 4 over power play. Short pushes his ball off the back foot into the offside. They'll get through for an easy single. Bartlett does the fielding.
Yeah, I think generally in Australia the wickets do bounce. We saw the other day that there was a bit of swing and bounce in the first 6 overs, especially here at the Gabba. And if you're trying to force the pace of the ball and trying to slog across the line, it can be very hard to hit and can provide wicket-taking opportunities for the bowling team. What we've seen here is quite sensible cricket shots. All the boundaries that have been hit have been straight back shots back past the bowler, which gives you a far better chance of hitting the middle of the bat.
39 for 1. Short has 16. Dawood Malan on strike now, and he lets this rapid bouncer go by, just sways it out of the way of it and lets it pass by his left shoulder through to the keeper. No run. You've kind of got to calibrate it a bit differently, haven't you, with Big Bash? So your sort of natural instinct is to think that, you know, in the IPL we saw, you know, a lot of runs up front, and then it sort of actually, if anything, gets a little bit harder to fall a big slog on at the end. But here, especially with the introduction of the surge as well, as Stickety is in, and that's swung away by Malan beautifully, the deep backward square. Only get a single for it as Heaslet tidies up and throws in a left arm. 1 more to the total, 40 for 1. So we're sort of getting this slightly different pattern where the first 10 overs, 60, 70 is not an unusual score in the first 10, and then we're also seeing sort of 110, 120 at the back end once the surge has come in, the ball's got a bit softer. That's partly this issue of the pitches and the ball bouncing, is it?
I think so, yeah. I think it's hard for a batsman to hit across the line. I mean, they're very good flat wickets, but sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce.
Stickety in, and that's cut away by Short. It's going to run away to the boundary for 4. That was all about the placement. There's a short third man and a backward point, and he managed to just guide that ball between the 2 fielders off the 6th ball of the over. We've seen a couple of boundaries, haven't we, off the last ball of the overs. 44 for 1. The Hobart Hurricanes. Short up to 20. Malan has 7 from 7. Now, I want to know about this quiz. So it's a family quiz.
Yep.
How many of you are on this quiz?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There were 8 of us.
And you play in teams or individually?
It was teams, households.
Households. How many households in this?
There were 4 households.
Oh, sweet. So it's 2 in each. Sort of thing. Right.
Yeah, 4 households. 2, but my girlfriend, she wrote the quiz and I played by myself, which put me at a serious disadvantage.
Did he? I would have thought knowing the quizmaster would have been
I was
quite
tempted
helpful.
to look, but she's quite a strict quizmaster, unfortunately for me, so it didn't give me a sneaky peek at any of the answers.
Did you have a kind of idea of sort of things, you know, sort of questions?
Well, no, I just knew that they weren't tailored towards me, because the demographic of the quiz was slightly older than myself.
Oh, so it was all sort of, it was all about, you know, the Battle of Arnhem, was it?
Yeah, Hastings 1066.
Yep. Yeah, what consisted in ration books. Mujib-ur Rahman starts his first over, round the wicket to the left-handed Malan. The ball just skids on to Malan, and there's no run. A hugely effective player. You've played with Mujib, haven't you?
Yeah, he's got a really interesting story. I think he loved living in London when he played for us.
He's in again, and Malan just whips us away through mid-wicket as a fielder out there on the boundary comes in to collect. One more to the total. Malan to 8.45 for one.
But the way he flicks the ball out the front of his hand, he's got a number of different ways that he holds the ball when he's running up. But the one that he flicks out the front of the hand.
Here he is into short, and that is short, pulled by short, out to deep mid-wicket. They might get 2 for it this time. In the end, they settle for just the single, 46 for one.
He basically bowls 3 balls, an off-spinner, a googly, and a flick out the front of his hand. And he learned the flick out the front of his hand with a tennis ball. He reckons when he played as a kid, he played with a tennis ball, and he'd go from...
Here he is again. That's again worked off the pads by Malan. Short, fine leg, just another single, 47 for one.
And he says he had to train his fingers to get strong enough to be able to flick the ball. I don't know if you've tried to flick a cricket ball out the front of your hand with the pace that he puts on it. It hurts. It's almost impossible.
Well, wide down the leg side, and that's been pulled away by short, fine, and it's going to run away to the boundary. I don't think it's going to be cut off. It is not cut off. So a little bit loose, that one from Mujib. Just kept going with the arm, with the angle from round the wicket. And Short was able to just put it round, scuffed it slightly, but it doesn't matter. As long as you get it fine with that short, fine leg, it runs to the boundary. The 50 is up, 51 for one. It must be intensely painful.
Yeah, but he went from that, progressed to an incredible, a soft cricket ball, realised his fingers weren't strong enough.
Short outside the off stump, cut away by Short out to deep point or cover. The end of the 7th over, the Hobart Hurricanes having been put into bat, 52 for one, going very comfortably here. Short 25 from 17, Malan 9 from 10.
And he just built up to a point where his fingers became strong enough to be able to flick it out the front of the hand at
really
the pace
calloused?
that he does.
I mean,
I didn't inspect them closely when we played together, but it's more the fingertips, I think. It's the strength to be able to flick it forwards with pace off your fingertips, almost the middle fingertip, like that.
And the advantage of this ball is because it's not going to turn, is it?
No, I think it holds.
It
holds slightly, and it looks different to a batsman. So I think part of the mystery of being a mystery spinner is the cues that a batsman gets when they're looking at it from their end towards the bowler. So when you see someone flick the ball out the front of their hand, even if it doesn't grip, it's partly in your mind. And Ravi Ashwin, who does a similar thing, flicks it out the front. It just looks different. So a batsman immediately goes, oh, that's different, and it gives the bowler a slight split-second advantage, knowing that the batsman thinks that it's something different that's coming down.
Well, you may have played against this guy, Lewis Gregory. Somerset's Lewis Gregory into the attack. First ball is full, driven powerfully and aerially up to long off, but just a single for Short. 53 for one. The Sri Lankan spin, was it a Janta Mendes?
It was a Janta Mendes, yeah.
And his flame burned merrily for a while and then disappeared. I remember
10 for in his first Test match, didn't he? I think against India.
I think so. Mind you, a few have done that. Hawani did that, didn't he? It was the Australian, did Jason Frazier, take an enormous number of wickets for a large amount of runs in one of his few tests. Malan flicks this ball from Gregory up in the air to the left of long on. Wanted 2, but sent back by Short, just the one. He moves to double figures, he has 10. And I remember a former colleague of yours, Ian O'Brien, telling me that New Zealanders were bamboozled by him when they first saw him, because he was doing this sort of flicky thing. But he said you could tell when he was doing it. I'll explain this thing as Gregory is in. Right arm over, and that's an attempted pull. Gets a thick top edge, it's in the air and is easily taken at point. Short looking to smack that over deep mid-wicket. He's got a leading edge, an outside edge, and it's just gone on a gentle looping parabola to point. And Second wicket goes down. 54 for 2. Short goes for 27. Lewis Gregory gets his man. Did that just rush on a little bit quicker than Short was expecting it?
It looked
seemed
that
to get
way.
high up on the bat.
It's come up at 114 kilometres an hour, which as a seam bowler you wouldn't be too endeared towards seeing when you're on the speed gun, especially if it looks as though you've rushed someone. But it certainly looked from the naked eye that Darcy Short, expecting it full from Lewis Gregory. I think both third man and fine leg were up inside the ring, which automatically makes the batsman think that the bowler's going to be bowling full. But as I discussed with Simon a little while ago, you have to try and outthink the batsman and let them not get comfortable with knowing exactly where you're going to be bowling every single ball. Lewis Gregory drags his length back, bangs it into the wicket, potentially a cross-seam delivery that maybe skidded on and rushed Short slightly, but Short was advancing down the wicket to try and hit it straight and was rushed and didn't get anywhere near enough of it straight up, and the point fielder takes an easy catch.
Handy breakthrough for the Brisbane Heat as the Hurricanes are going pretty comfortably so far. They've not got away from the Heat yet, but at 54 for 2 off 7.3. I mean, we've seen the boost point comes in at the end of the 10th over, and I've rarely seen that boost target be much over 70. Well, at the moment the Hurricanes are well on course for that. 15 balls to go till the end of the 10th, and next delivery is to Milan from Gregory, and he can just push that off the front foot to backward point, and there's no run. Yes, Ian O'Brien said that the way the New Zealanders worked out Ajanta Mendis.
I mean, is this Ian O'Brien, the batsman, talking?
Well, I know.
Because I've seen it. I've seen him bat.
It was bold stuff from OB. I think, in fairness, this was word that had gone around the camp after Ross Taylor had worked it out.
Okay,
I'm not sure Ian had done the work. No. Gregory in on the pads, worked away by Milan. Short, fine leg, but just to the right of that fielder, so they get through for an easy single. 55 for 2. As he said, you look out for the aerials. So when the bowler's going to bowl the flicky ball, in the case of Ajanta Mendis, his forefinger and his little finger shot out to the side.
Right.
Now, of course, I don't know. Maybe you, the Watford Wall, might be able to do that. I don't know. But I suppose if you are good enough, I mean, batsmen are supposed to watch the seam, aren't they? I can't see a seam, so if they can see the seam, they can see the aerials. But he used to get a lot of people with that, didn't he? Because that was the one that just sort of slid on, I guess, and held up a bit. But until people worked him out, he was picking up wickets left, right and centre as Gregory's into Hanscom, who pulls a shortish ball out to deep square leg for a single, deep mid-wicket really, in front of square there. 56 for 2. Hanscom off the mark with that single. Milan has 11. I found that with the introduction of the surge, the idea was to sort of, I think, to keep us interested. I think it's worked really well myself. But it does mean that actually overs 6 to 10 start to become the middle overs, don't they? This is the kind of, in every innings in cricket, you can't just go bish bash bosh the whole time, can you? So the introduction of the surge has just made that these overs, as opposed to say overs, 8 to 14, I suppose.
Yeah, it narrows down that period, doesn't it, I think, and especially as we go through the tournament and there are people jostling for places and different playoff places towards the back end of it, this extra point actually might become even more important, and you might see teams. I mean, I was surprised the other night that when it looked as though the Brisbane Heat were going to be really struggling to make the final total, which actually in the end they ended up getting close to, but it took an almost Herculean effort from the keeper and Captain Pearson to be able to do that. Why you wouldn't go hell for leather to try and get at least 1 point out of the game, even if you're all out before the 10 overs.
Steggedy starts his second over. His first went for 10, and Hanscom defends first ball back of a length, back to the bowler. There's no run. What we haven't seen yet is sides, I don't think we have, in the first innings. And here's a good example of it. The Hurricanes 56 for 2. They've got a pretty lengthy batting lineup. And if they lost a couple of wickets, they could bring in an X-Factor player. They've got Chemo Paul on the bench. Just have a little dart for 2 overs to try to get that 10 over score just up a bit. Say if they got it up to 75, 80. Hanscom moves right across his stumps, as he's wont to do, to this foolish ball from Steggedy, and all he can do is work it into the onside. Steggedy fields of his own bowling. Because there is a point at stake here, isn't there? And if they get 20 off the next 2 as opposed to 12 off the next 2, that could be the difference. If you lose a wicket trying, but you've got your X-factor sub to bring in.
Yeah.
If you need another
You
batsman.
might see people jostling the batting order around potentially. These two guys now, Hanscom and Malan, are very classic players.
Steggedy in, that's whipped away. I'm not sure it's entirely where Hanscom intended, but it's gone to the mid-wicket boundary for 4. It's hard to tell with Hanscom because he's got quite an idiosyncratic technique and played a shot that looked like it was supposed to be a drive on the offside, and he's ended up sort of fetching it from outside the off stump over mid-wicket. 3 or 4 bounces before running into the sponge for 4, 60 for 2.
It's a very bottom-handed whip that from Hanscom, but the mid-wicket fielder is up inside the ring to try and create some pressure, build dots as we saw with the first 2 balls.
Steggedy again, and that's pulled by Hanscom in the air. It's not got a lot of distance in it. It's going to land safely about 15 yards outside the 30-yard circle, and the batters get through for a single. Hanscom to 6, 61 for 2. 8 balls left. I suppose this boost point, you might start seeing this happen as we get nearer the end of the group phase, because suddenly, you know, we're going to be doing these calculations, and a side in 6th might need a 4-point win, and if they're batting first, they're suddenly going to have to make sure that they post a challenging 10 over total as well as a 20 over total. Yeah. Do you like it? Would you like to see it in the blast?
I don't know, as a captain it feels like you've already got enough to think about. You've just put even more on your plate to think about.
Dawid Malan on strike, Steggedy into him, and it just, well, chip pulls this out through deep backward square. It's going to run to the boundary for 4. That was a brilliantly controlled shot by Malan. I'm not sure, I think he might have thought twice about the shot. Then as the ball came onto him, he just checked it and has paddled it really around the corner over the top of the short fine leg, and he's just kept 2 fielders interested enough to make them chase despairingly after a ball that was always going to the boundary. 65 for 2.
Speedo said 123 kilometres an hour there, which makes me think it was a slower ball. The way he played it, he was in position to pull it away, had to wait for it, almost guided it over that short fine leg fielder. Mujib there races away to the boundary. You feel as though you've lost out a bit as a bowler there.
Steggedy finishes his over with a shortish ball that Malan looks to guide down through 3rd man, or just over the top of the keeper maybe, misses it completely. It goes through low to Pearson. There is no run. 65 for 2 from 9. Dawid Malan playing his first game today in this year's Big Bash, having come out of quarantine, and he was in quarantine just down the hall from TMS commentator Adam Collins.
Right.
They were stuck in quarantine together. Adam had gone out with his, can you believe, a wife and 10-month-old daughter, 2 weeks in a hotel room which you cannot leave.
Sounds like bliss.
Sounds like hell to me, but of course Adam being well, just the most profound generator of work I've ever come across. In that situation, I'm just, you know, head down, Netflix. I'm watching all of The Sopranos in 2 weeks. That would basically be my
strong
challenge.
Choice, that, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Lewis Gregory starts a new over, ball, and that's Yorker length, slower as well, I think. Dabbed back to the bowler by Hanscom, no run. But no, Adam decided he would use his time productively and get an interview with Dawid Malan, who was just 4 doors down the corridor or something. I mean, it's not inconsiderable effort, I think, this quarantining. I'm not sure I would fancy it. It's difficult to sort of...
It's luck of the draw, I think, as well.
It is, yeah. Here's Gregory again. That's worked away into the onside by Hanscom, as he's often wont to do. Square of the wicket. He'll think about a second. Bartlett does the fielding. There, just the one in the end. 66 for 2.
Steve Eskenazi, the Middlesex player, he got incredibly lucky and got a room with a balcony that overlooked the Sydney Harbour and the Opera House. So he's sending pictures to everyone of, oh, this quarantine, it's shocking, isn't it? But then Owen Morgan's wife, Tara, sent a photo, and she had a window that was no more than probably 3 foot by a foot and was looking at a brick wall.
Gregory in, and Malan pulls at this, and I think he's going to be caught. He is at mid-off. He looked to hit that the onside. He didn't get anything like enough bat on it. He got to it late. And a ball spooned really, really gently up in the air to Tom Cooper, and the catch is taken. That's the end of Milan's first innings of this year's Big Bash. The Hurricanes 66 for 3. And I don't know if that was the thought about the 10 over target that they were setting, or whether it's just short and it was there to be hit and he didn't hit it. Got a bit too big on him.
Yeah, looking at the way Lewis Gregory's bowled here, he's bowled 9 balls now. 7 of them have been slower balls and 2 have been quicker. So 7 have been around 115 kilometres an hour and 2 have been 138, 139 kilometres an hour, and that was the quicker ball. So I think David there is probably thinking, right, he's bowling predominantly slower balls. The field is out square with this big boundary to try and get me to hit over those men. But Lewis Gregory, one step ahead, knows that David will be thinking that, bangs it in halfway down, pace on, and challenges him to hit it, or to try and hit it over that mid-off fielder who's up inside the ring. There, rushes him, gets nothing of it, and it's a top edge straight up, and Tom Cooper takes the catch.
66 for 3 then, halfway through the 10th over. Yeah, we're talking about the luck of the draw on those quarantines. Isha Guha, we've been in touch with, because Isha Guha, Ali Mitchell, Adam Collins all went out there for this test series out in Australia. Ball driven in the air, and a good diving catch at mid-off sees the end of Peter Hanscom. That's 2 in 2 for Lewis Gregory. And the Hurricanes suddenly imploding here. They're 66 for 4. There was a full ball. It was driven at, but again didn't get anything like enough of it. Mid-off came running in, had to dive forward, got both hands underneath it, an inch or 2 off the ground. And that's Steckedy there at mid-off, taking the catch. The Hurricanes 66 for 4 now, in some serious bother. Well, only 10 minutes ago, they were coasting.
Yeah, and I think one of the marked differences to what we saw 3 or 4 overs ago to what we've seen now is that they're playing big shots, whereas the way they got to, I think, 52 off 7 overs, over 7 runs and over, was by trying to hit the gaps, playing proper cricket shots, and backing themselves that if they weren't getting a boundary off balls, they were getting 2 runs to the deep fielders. Now that field has been pushed back, they're trying to take on the fielders that are inside the ring, and both times they're getting caught on the ring at mid-off, both Hanscom and Milan. So a quite marked difference to the way they played in the previous 3 or 4 overs, but it's to the detriment of them and their endeavour to try and get a score that is going to be challenging on this wicket.
Hat-trick ball coming up for Lewis Gregory, who's now got 3 for. He's got 3 for 5 in 10 balls, Lewis Gregory. The English contingent haven't really been pulling up trees in this year's Big Bash, and quite a few ducks. There's a game the other day where both Englishmen got out for a 2-ball duck. But Lewis Gregory with 3 for 5 is changing the game for the winless Heat here against the Hobart Hurricanes. Can he get a hat-trick to boot? The tall figure of Tim David. There are 2 things about Tim David. He's tall and he's Singaporean. But is he really? Here comes Gregory. Hat-trick ball. And Gregory drives just in front of point, in the air for a while. But a catch could not be taken. A dot ball nonetheless. And this has been, at the moment, it's a match-turning spell from Lewis Gregory. And clever bowling as well. Stephen Finn's spot on there. He's suckered the bowlers with some slower balls, and then put in the quicker one. He's been supported by his fielder there, Steckedy, getting Hanscom out. You'd expect him to catch it, I guess, but he had a bit of ground to make up, and he had to time his dive right, did Steckedy. Last ball of the 10th over. Yes. Is worked into the onside by the tall David, out to deep mid-wicket. They should think, well, they're not going to come back for a second. So that is the end of the 10th over, and the Hobart Hurricanes 67 for 4. We make a note of that for many reasons, not least that is the Bash boost point target. A relatively high one for this year's Big Bash, but at 67 for 4, there's going to be a fair bit of rebuilding, you would think, Stephen Finn, before they can think about taking the promised 2-over surge.
Yeah, you would imagine so. I think there's 2 ways that you would go about it. In this instance, you would think that you either save it for right at the end of the innings when you're trying to go great guns, when hopefully you've got 2 batsmen in who can take advantage of it, or on the flip side, you use the Bash boost very soon to be able to give some impetus and give some
side, who's 18 years old, who's...
Well, here's Majid for now with a slip in, bowls to David, who forces that through extra cover. And they're looking at 2 here, but they have to settle for a single. 68 for 4.
I mean, I'm looking at what's left. There's James Faulkner, then there's Ellis, Boland, Parker and Riley Meredith. So, I mean, there'd be no point in bringing Boto in, you wouldn't think.
No, because that was sort of not quite like to like, but...
Sort of doesn't really do the job that you're after, but you could bring in a batter, couldn't you? And in Chemo Paul, you've got one.
Majid ran the wicket, bowls to Ingram, the left-handed South African who plays into the onside. Majid skips across to try and pick it up, but can't intercept it, can't prevent it going up towards long on.
And the joy of having Paul is that he's also a bowler. So wouldn't you be hugely tempted to bin one of those bottom 4 and probably the 18-year-old on debut?
Majid to David, played away backwards square for a single. Well, neither side has activated their X-Factor player.
Do you know that for sure? How do you know? Because I'm trying to find out how you get the information. Where's it come from?
I'm just locked into the game, Daniel.
Really?
Yeah. 70 for 4, midway through the 11th over.
Let's see.
David has 3, Ingram has 1. Neither side has used their X-Factor player tonight.
Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. What's the point in the X-Factor? Well, you're not going to bring in...
Well, it may well be that as time goes on and at the end of the competition they decide, what indeed is the point, does it really work? But in which case, that's fine. You just move on, and if you want to have another type of innovation, you look at that, or you just get rid of it.
I think it does work. I just don't think... I don't know why they haven't activated it.
Majid to Ingram. Ingram chops that away down through the backward point area, and they're through for a single. Now I've got a couple of quiz questions for you which I've been saving up. I heard you talking to Steve Finn about his quiz over Christmas. Here's one. Apropos of actually nothing, but just so I think they're quite interesting questions. 71 for 4, and I know you're a great quizzer. I know you've had a history of having some success in quizzes. David has 3, Ingram has 2. Majid is bowling his second over, goes in now and bowls to David, who pushes that up through long off, beats the dive of the extra cover fielder, and they get a single. Steketee, who's been in the action a lot, picked up 2 catches so far, sent in the return. 72 for 4 after 11 overs. What country in the world has the most coastline?
Indonesia.
Is incorrect.
Oh, you sure? With all those islands?
Yeah, I'm correct.
The most coastline?
Yeah.
well, Australia would be a decent shout because it's very big.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Canada, we think, would be a reasonable shout. It won't be Chile because it's only got the one side. It's only 3,000 miles. You're not going to tell me it's Britain. It can't be Britain.
I'll give you until the end of the next over to make a final decision.
It can't be Britain because it's so...
Gregory, 2 overs, 3 for 6 so far. Bowls to the tall David, who comes forward rather circumspectly there, as if Gregory is bowling like Malcolm Marshall. He just needs to have a look at him and think, what on earth is he doing? 3 for 6. And anyone who's seen Gregory bowl, Lewis Gregory, will know he's of no great pace, but he's got a trick or two in T20 cricket, and he turns and prepares to go in again to bowl to David. That's outside the off stump, belted away up towards mid-off. There's a diving save again by Steketee. This time they run with the stroke. It's a good piece of fielding by Steketee, actually diving away to his left, picks it up in 2 hands. It was hit firmly by David, and they are through for 1. David to 5, Ingram 2. So having to rebuild a little bit here after the loss of those 3 quick wickets. Short out for 27. Milan in his first game for the Hurricanes out for 13. McDermott for 16 and Handscomb for 7. But it's not easy for Milan when you consider he's been in quarantine. He's just come out. And there's a great deal of expectation around him as well with his recent success. Gregory moves in and bowls to Ingram, who clips that away into the onside, up towards long on. And they're through for a single. 74 for 4.
You're counting it as a coastline when the ice cap's melted, aren't you?
Sorry, say that again?
So when the polar ice melts in summer, it creates like more sea.
Yeah.
Right? So you're not. So you're counting that, aren't you? Canada.
It's a straightforward question. 74 for 4 in the 12th over. David swings that away into the leg side. He's made good contact with that and needs a decent piece of fielding on the boundary, and it receives it as well. They're coming back for the second, throws on its way to the non-striker's end and to the striker's end via the bowler. A good bit of cricket all round, actually. Well struck, well fielded, and Gregory at the stumps was trying to, looking for a run out of the non-strikers and then at the striker's end. So the one thing you could say was about the cricket there was the running, actually. There was a bit of hesitation, but they've got back for 2. And the score moves to 76 for 4. David to 7 with those 2 runs. He was the one that hesitated at the non-strikers end. Gregory bowls him outside the off stump. Chopping shot from David. And not the pace on it there from Gregory to work it away. David hitting it hard into the surface. And Gregory continues to frustrate these Hobart Hurricane batsmen. David 7, Ingram 3. Admittedly, they've only just come to the crease. The answer coming up in 1 ball.
I'm going with Canada.
3 for 10. Coming to the end of his 3rd over.
Although actually I suspect it's got to be Australia. It's huge, Australia.
Gregory starting from inside the circle. Moves in now at the Gabba to bowl to David. It's a short ball, slower ball into the pitch, dragged away towards deep mid-wicket. And it's only a single, so Gregory is through 3 overs now, and he's taken 3 for 11. 77 for 4 after 12 overs. David has 8, Ingram has 3, and your final answer therefore, Daniel, is?
Well, firstly, I just want to.
Your final answer
I just want
is?
to take my hat off to you, Simon, because Henry Blofeld used to have to find various different ways to keep his summarisers quiet. And what you've done is quite nakedly sat there concocting a plan.
I got another question. I
bet you have. You've probably got one for each over that you have to endure.
Your final answer is?
My final answer, because I can add Tasmania, and there's a bunch of little islands knocking about, so I'm going to go with Australia.
Oh, you should have stuck with Canada.
Is it Canada?
It is Canada, yeah. It's got loads and loads of islands.
Islands and inlets and yeah. So I'm surprised that Indonesia didn't get a mention, because that is just a bunch of islands, isn't it?
No, the answer is Canada.
And then I was really worried it was going to be Norway because of the fields.
Majid bowls his 3rd over to David, who guides that into the onside. And they go through for a single. And
How close is it?
I'm not sure. That I'm not sure.
Well, let us know. Tweet us.
My second question for you, because it's Christmas and we like a quiz at Christmas, and people have been quizzing by the sounds of it, and it's sort of related to something you said before we came on air, actually, about how you didn't have meat in your Christmas dinner, so it's a sort of vegetarian related question. Which countries have the highest proportion of vegetarians? Top 5 in the world. Ooh. So not necessarily the most, but percentage per population. Ingram drives, Majid fields off his own bowling.
Percentage per population. India
is the correct answer for number 1, but then the other 4. What are the top 5? 78 for 4. Majid bowls to Ingram, and Ingram gets that off the edge, goes down fine towards 3rd man. Bryant's after it, sprinting towards the rope. He can't get there, and that's raced away off the outside edge of Ingram's bat for 4. And it really was a victory for the bowler, but ultimately Ingram gets his boundary. He was a bit unlucky there, Majid. He was looking to play that, I think, into the onside. He almost got a leading fine edge, and then fielder could not chase it down.
The United Kingdom.
Incorrect. Majid bowls. It's driven by Ingram into the offside towards a deep extra cover. They'll come back for 2 this time.
I'm ruling out all of South America.
You're right too. Ingram moves to 9.
I'm ruling out all of Central America.
You're right too. 84 for 4 in the 13th over. Both batsmen on 9. Ingram on strike. Majid bowls, cut away through backward point, and this could well go for 4 as well. Brilliant stop. Fantastic stop by Heasler, away to his right on the deep backward point boundary, knocking it back inside the rope. That was an excellent piece of fielding, because that seemed to be running away from him. He dived and then flicked it back, and then took the boundary rope with him, got to his feet, ran back inside the rope, and then sent in the return.
New Zealanders are very socially responsible people.
But it's incorrect. 87 for 4.
There aren't that many of them either. Right.
I think the reason I asked the questions, I think the answers are surprising.
Surprising, yes.
David on 9 gets a short ball outside the off stump. Quicker delivery from Ajuy, tries to cut it away, misses it, and it's taken by the wicket-keeper. And that is the end of the over. It's 87 for 4 after 13 overs. You're listening to the Big Bash. David has 9, Ingram has 12. 5 Live Sports Extra, BBC Sounds, and the BBC Sport website. The day after Boxing Day. So much cricket going on around the world. India in control of the second test match at the MCG. They lead by 82 with 5 wickets of their first innings in hand. Fantastic century today from Ajinkya Rahane. What a turnaround from the first test where he ran out Virat Kohli. Today he played a high-class innings. Unbeaten at the close. Incorrect. Think closer to home. That's a little clue.
Well, it's Ireland.
Incorrect.
Can't be France. That's bang. That's not going to happen.
You're right in that it can't be France.
It can't be France. Can't be Italy.
Well, you say that.
Surely not. Really?
Italy is in the top 5. 87 for 4. Ingram on 12. Steketee goes in and bowls. Dabbed away down towards short third man. They got 2 men behind square on that offside, so they can't get a single. Ingram has to stay on 12. New Zealand making 431. Pakistan 30 for 1 after 20 overs of their reply in that test match in Mount Maunganui. There's something relentless about New Zealand's cricket. They're very strong at home. Put into bat, racked up 400, century from Kane Williamson.
Can you imagine being a Pakistan fan seeing BJ Watling coming out to bat after 101 overs?
Especially at Mount Maunganui as well. Here's Ingram on strike, driving into the offside. He hits that well wide of mid-off. This is going for 4. Ingram goes to 16. Hit that really well. It was in the slot from Steketee. 91 for 4. Hobart Hurricanes against the Brisbane Heat. We're in the 14th over. It's outside the off stump and forced away. BJ Watling, who scored a double 100 against England there 13 months ago after being dropped by Ben Stokes. I think he was on 31 at the time. Straightforward catch at slip just before lunch went down. And Watling came out mid-half century today. Ingram gets the ball. It's wide. Oh, he hit it straight to cover. And he's gone. And Steketee gets a wicket. He's pinched a wicket there, really. And Ingram's out for 16. And that felt like another very soft dismissal. We've had a few of those with the Hobart Hurricane batsman trying to force the issue and sort of plinking it to fielders inside the ring. And that was, well, you feel as if he could almost have done anything with that.
That's a horrible dismissal, isn't it? Absolutely foul. It was short and wide, I suppose angled across him. And when you get out like that, it's just the most loathsome thing. All he's done is just plop it into the hands of Bryant at extra cover for 16 off 11. And it's so important because, you know, I was starting to speculate in my mind about the surge. These 2 batters had kind of they'd earned the right, I thought, to maybe have a dip at the surge in the next over or 2. And now they're not. And the problem, I think, if you don't take your surge a little earlier, then it allows the captain just to get away with his plans, doesn't it? It allows him to keep on bowling the bowlers he wants. Yesterday we saw a really effective surge, 49 coming in 2 overs off the, I think, 13th and 14th overs of the innings, and it forced captain to use bowlers that he would use at the back end. Now, at the moment, I can't see the Hurricanes taking it with Faulkner, the new batsman. He's going to want at least 2 or 3 overs to get himself in, isn't he? And with Ingram gone, it could have been really, really decisive.
I've been looking forward to a surge from the last 2 overs of the innings all throughout the Big Bash. Hasn't happened yet, and there's a logic to it not happening in the last 2 overs. Yeah. But who knows?
It might happen this time.
Might do, might. 91 for 5. Faulkner is in at number 7. And Steketee goes in and bowls to him, and Faulkner started to give himself some room there and then crabbed into line and pushed it back to the bowler, and there's no run. There's one other test match going on at the moment, and we had a bit of redemption actually today with Rahane scoring his 100 in the second test match after running out Kohli. A bit of redemption today for Luto Sipamla, who was making his debut for South Africa. He went all around the park yesterday against Sri Lanka, but he's come back with 4 wickets today. He was on a hat-trick at one point. Here is Steketee moving into bowl to Faulkner. Faulkner plays an awkward looking shot on the pull through mid-wicket to get off the mark. He gets a single. Score goes to 92 for 5, and Sri Lanka bowled out for 396 by South Africa. Sipamla 16 overs, 1 maiden, 4 for 76. And there's Dasan Shanaka made 66 not out, and the problem there for Sri Lanka was that Dhananjaya de Silva was batting really well yesterday, and he's out of the match and out of the series. And of course England are playing against Sri Lanka on the 14th of January.
Is this his hip?
It looked like a sort of thigh muscle injury. Here's David on strike. Steketee bowls, turned away by David into the onside towards deep mid-wicket. They are through for a single. They went for a quick single, and he pulled up, and that was it. He had to be sort of carried off the field. Yeah, it was it.
So people forget the Sri Lanka series from a couple of years ago in South Africa, which was probably one of the...
It's 93 for 5, by the way, out of 14 overs.
One of the great Test match upsets of all time, wasn't it? I mean, that was, you would say, that South African lineup was quite a strong one, bowling-wise. They had Rabada, Philander, had Dale Steyn, of course. And Sri Lanka not just won that incredible Test match with that remarkable innings. It was certainly rival Ben Stokes's, didn't get quite the same plaudits, by Kushal Mendis at the top of the order. But they also won the series, which was quite a thing. For them to do that away in South Africa, when you don't really think of Sri Lanka as having great depth in their quicker bowlers, but that's partly because we haven't seen this battery of quicker bowlers in England yet, have we? England have played against Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka, and they've tended to use just the one quicker bowler in Lakmal.
David on strike. Wildermuth bowls, played away by David into the onside towards deep square, and they're through for a single.
If it's surprising these vegetarian countries, it's going to be America.
No.
So all those Californians aren't doing it.
Think closer to
Norway.
Think closer to
Sweden.
Home. There's a lot of Midwest in America as well, remember?
That's very true, yes.
There's a lot in the middle.
There's a lot in the middle, yeah. But yeah. I was thinking maybe New York and California could make up for it. So not Norway or Sweden, or Denmark.
No. 94 for 5 in the 15th over. Do you want me to put you out of your misery? Germany. So the whole bratwurst sausage things. That was the one that really surprised me.
So it's India, Italy, Germany, and 2 others that are also close to home.
Relatively, yeah. One's very close to Germany, actually.
Oh, the Netherlands, Poland, Denmark, Austria. Going round. You can see that I was going clockwise.
Yeah. 94 for 5. In the 15th over, short ball to Faulkner. He fends it into the onside. They're off for a single shot at the stumps. At the striker's end, the ball hits the stumps, but they are home for the single.
I refuse to believe it's Belgium.
No. The other one is just a little bit further afield and begins with I.
Iran, Iraq. Which are the other I's? Indonesia.
With Iran and Iraq, you're sort of in roughly the right part of the world.
Roughly the right part of the world.
95 for 5 in the 15th over. David has 11. Faulkner has 2. He's played unconvincingly so far, Faulkner. As if he's not quite sure of the bounce on this Gabba pitch. David is on strike. 11 from 14 balls. He gets a short ball, which he swats away towards deep back of square leg for 4. He was onto that one all right. Wildermuth testing out the middle of the pitch, and David swinging it away. And the score goes to 99 for 5, the Hobart Hurricanes in the 15th over. That was the 10th 4 of the innings, and just in that Test match at Centurion, Sri Lanka 396, South Africa 15 for no wicket in reply. Dan was mentioning the pace bowlers for Sri Lanka. They are playing Hasaranga, which will be interesting to see whether he pitches up against England. They rate him very highly. He's making his Test debut as well. Wildermuth bowls outside the off stump, forced away by David out towards deep extra cover. That's gone for 4 as well. It's a lovely stroke on the up through the offside. Class shot. As David goes to 19.
That was an absolutely glorious shot, wasn't it?
Beautiful.
That was not a full half volley at all, was it?
No, he didn't try to hit it too hard either. It was all about the timing and placement. 100's up for the Hobart Hurricanes, 103 for 5 in the 15th over. Yeah, they've got Rajita and then Vishwa Fernando and the Hiru Kumara in their pace attack. with Hasaranga to bowl some spin, and Shanaka as well to bowl a bit of medium pace as well. That's the balance of the Sri Lankan side. Might be very different when England go there. Bit of a turnaround as well, quick turnaround for Sri Lankans. 2 test matches home. I think it's only a week between the second test in South Africa and the first test against England. 104 for 5 after 15 overs. David has 20.
It's fine, Simon. I'm going to stay here in order to avoid the terrible shenanigans through which you put me. What's the 5th country?
It's Israel.
Israel.
Steve Finn's coming back for the last 5 overs of the innings, Daniel, and you can pick up the commentary.
Thank you, Simon. 104 for 5 from 15, so 5 overs left and a surge to come. 160 still on the cards, but for the Brisbane Heat, who are desperate for a win. If they were to lose this, losing your first 4 games, even in a protracted season like this, starts to put an enormous amount of pressure on you. Here we go. Here is the surge. It's the well-known sign of the surge. Henry Moran likens it to somebody who's just stretching a slightly awkward shoulder. You get the right hand first, which goes clockwise in a circular motion, and then the left hand goes clockwise in a circular motion, and Mujib Ur Rahman is going to be bowling in the surge, and I imagine it's going to be, well, this is the game for the Hurricanes, isn't it? Insofar as if they're going to stay in the game and post a decent total, Stephen Finn, this next 2 overs are going to be crucial.
You'd think so, yeah. The other day, 150 ended up being a winning score quite comfortably, I think, even though the game got close in the end. 150 was a winning score, so they'll have half an eye on hoping that this surge can give them the impetus that carries them to 10 and over for their final 5 overs to get them up towards that 150, 160 mark.
5 in a menacing ring on the offside, 2 on the leg side, 2 boundary fielders out on the leg side. Mujib in, driven by David to wide-ish mid-off in the circle, and there is no run. I'm not expecting to see that shot much more in this over. They've got the spinner on, they've got to target him, they've got as I say, 5 in the circle on the offside. There's plenty of space over them, over extra cover. Well, he's gone for a big swing as David, and he's got thick under edge. Ball runs to Baisley. Dropped an absolute sitter earlier today. One of the great drops in world cricket. We love a good drop. David Gower dropped an absolute sitter in 1982. 82 or 83, was never allowed to forget it against New Zealand at square leg. Mujib in, that's full in the block hole and whipped away by Faulkner for a single and no more. 106 for 5. David has 21. Faulkner has 3.
A few memorable ones I can think of. Vaughan dropping one, I can't remember where, but it was just one of the biggest goobers I've ever seen.
Onto the pads of David, he goes for a big swing over deep mid-wicket and gets nothing on it. Pearson just collects the ball that landed at the feet of the batter, and there's no run.
I remember that one from my youth quite.
Was that a mid-offy one?
Yeah, mid-off, real loopy.
Mujib in, that's full toss, and it's been punched down the ground into the hands of long on. Tom Cooper takes the catch, and Tim David will be absolutely furious. It was a full toss, and he ended up hitting it 2 straight. That was what he probably should have been looking to hit over deep mid-wicket. He's gone straight down the ground, and Cooper's taken a good running catch, moving to his left, and has taken that about a yard or so inside the boundary, above his head. That was a really well-judged catch. He made it look so ludicrously easy. The Hobart Hurricanes have lost their 6th wicket. It's the big one. Tim David, 106 for 6.
He's almost checked his shot there. You think that it was 105 kilometres an hour from Mujib, so slightly quicker than his usual ball. Trying to find that Yorker in the block hole, too full. And David, maybe it rushed him for pace slightly, but it almost looks as though he checked his shot, didn't have the full golf follow through that we see so often from guys who are trying to hit 6s now. They hit with almost a golf swing. This was a very correct, straight batted check drive that had he gone through with the shot slightly more, such a big man, you'd think that it would have carried over that boundary rope, but it wasn't to be, and this over hasn't provided the impetus they'd have liked. 106 for 6 off 15.5 overs.
Well, no, it's nothing short of a disaster, really. We've got one ball left in the over. We've only had 2 runs from it, and that really crucial wicket. And I think the batters didn't even cross, which means Nathan Ellis is going to be on strike. And there's only 6 more balls of power play after this, if you like. 6 more balls of surge. I've just realised who it is that Tom Cooper looks like. Rajiv in, worked into the onside up to long on for an easy single.
I think I know who you're going to say.
107 for 6, end of the 16th over.
Is it the policeman out of...
Inspector Montalbano? Cattarella? Great minds.
Yeah.
You're a Montalbano fan. End of the over, 107 for 6.
No, because you know what? I've been told when I had a tash that I looked a lot like him as well.
No.
But with the tash...
Now, you tell you're a bit prettier than Cattarella.
Oh, thank you. My heart's just fluttered slightly.
Well...
That's the most anyone's flirted with me for years.
Well, you know, it's Christmas, isn't it? He looks incredibly like Cattarella. For fans of Montalbano, go and check out Tom Cooper at the moment. He'd been bugging me for a while. I thought, who is it that he looks like? Have you seen Cattarella?
No, I just...
Go and have a little search. You'll see exactly what I mean in a minute. 4 overs remain in this Hobart Hurricanes innings, and they've got to try and find a way. I mean, that's as Stephen Finn said, 150 could be enough, especially against a side so lacking in confidence as the Brisbane Heat. But don't really want to be defending 150 if you can avoid it, although now that could be the apex of their ambition. Nathan Ellis is on strike. Mark Stickety is running in, right arm over the wicket. He advances down the wicket and hits it high in the air, over wide, long off. And he's going to be dropped by Lewis Gregory, who's had an otherwise impeccable day. Lewis Gregory picking up 3 quick wickets and crucial wickets on this occasion. He was running backwards. It was a tough catch. It was coming over his shoulder, always the hardest ones. He put out his hands, but he got both hands to it, and then it, in the most hideous fashion, rolled down his hand, along his arm, off his elbow, off his body, and into the sponge for 4. A bit of fortune for Nathan Ellis. 111 for 6. Stickety into him again, and he pulls this Ellis high and hard. It's going to bounce once in front of Tom Cooper, aka Cattarella, down on the wide long on boundary, and they pick up 112 for 6. The 2 boundary riders are out at deep mid wicket and long on. Hence the targeting of the offside by Ellis off that first ball, but it was nearly his undoing. Have you found him yet?
I think I'm Googling the wrong things here. The Cattarella has just come up with a cat dressed as Cinderella.
But Montalbano. Oh, right. Okay. Ellen Aldride's been in touch. Stickety in, and that's whipped away nicely by Faulkner in the air. One bounce again to Tom Cooper, just like that. And there's one more to the total, 113 for 6. Now then, Eleanor Aldride's been in touch.
Yep.
She's sitting in bed with a cup of tea.
Lucky her.
Listening to us.
Unlucky her.
She says, although Simon should know better than to ask you quiz questions, knowing how argumentative you are about the answers. There's a truth to that, I'm sorry. When you get the chance, will you ask Finney about his extraordinary resemblance? Stickety in, and that's full in the air again from Ellis. Has he got that over the infield? He has, but this time Lewis Gregory just moves back 8 or 9 paces from the edge of the circle, and then takes the catch comfortably, this time facing the ball rather than it coming over his shoulder. He's got a big beaming grin, and he's low fiving and high tenning. And the Hurricanes have lost their 7th wicket. Their innings is in danger of imploding here. They're 113 for 7. Nathan Ellis, the man to go. Because I'm halfway through the sentence, I've got to get through it. When you get the chance, will you ask Finney about his extraordinary resemblance to D.S. Nelson from Midsummer Murders?
Actually, I do get that on Twitter a lot, actually. D.S. Nelson, I'm Googling him.
I'm sure I'm not the first to raise it, she said. Yeah. I now can't watch that series without seeing Finney asking furrowed-browed questions alongside DCI Barnaby.
That's quite a dashing chap, this bloke. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Well, you should be much happier than Cattarella, I can tell you. I'm going to find you, Cattarella. And you will see exactly what I mean. So we do have a bit of an issue here for the Hobart Hurricanes. they've taken the surge, but of course they've taken the surge at a time when they didn't necessarily have all the players that all the batters they would have wanted out there. Here we go. There's the man.
Oh, you think he looks like him? Okay, I was thinking of a different policeman.
Oh.
But I can't think of the TV show that...
Bottom right is probably the most Tom Cooper of the lot. Steckity in. He's taken 2 wickets. He's hunting for his third. But James Faulkner has somehow managed to manufacture a boundary from a wide Yorker. That was an incredible shot from Faulkner. It's like sort of using a huge broom. He managed to, if you can imagine, play a straight sweep that's gone straight past the bowler, very close to the stumps of the non-striker's end, and there's nobody fielding that straight. Quite brilliant piece of improvisation. Has brought up 4 off it was a low full toss, almost Yorker length, 117 for 7. 1 ball remains in the surge. Here is Steckity into Faulkner, who pulls, but straight to short square leg. Throw comes in, non-striker's end. Faulkner is home. It was not as accurate as it needed to be. It means that Faulkner will keep strike at the end of the 17th over. The Hurricanes 118 for 7.
It was the LOLO policeman I was thinking of. Josh Butler just texted me now saying that I look like the policeman out of LOLO, but I think Tom Cooper does.
You look more like Tamsin Gregg. Tell us your favourite cricketer detective. So you're supposed to look like... So Josh Butler thinks that you look like the detective from Hello Hello.
Yep.
You need a tash though for that.
Yeah, but this is when I was growing my Movember effort.
I see. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, there's an element of it. But again, I'd have to say slightly prettier.
Happy with that.
Yeah.
But Joss isn't the kindest to me.
More into the Nelson camp, really, I think. It's fair to say. 3 overs remain, 118 for 7, 3 overs in this innings. And Bartlett, who opened the bowling, is in again. That's been swung away by Faulkner. That's a wonderful shot for 6. There's a lot of bottom hand in that and a lot of muscularity. And he's fetched it from outside the off stump and got it pretty flat, actually, over a straight mid-wicket. Wide long on, and that's about 4 or 5 rows back, but didn't really get up that high at any point, did it?
No, flat and hard. It was slower ball from Bartlett, off cutter, just straight into the arc of Faulkner, waiting for it. It was neither short nor full enough to be an effective ball, so just swung away.
They could take out 4 or 5 pints, that one. It's Bartlett again. It's a slower ball, full, and just worked up to long on. They're going to come back. No, they're not going to come back for a second. 125 for 7. Well, we saw the other day, I don't know if you were watching, a shot into the crowd managed to take out 3 pints. Firstly, someone leant forward to try to get it, and this is where things went wrong. He spilt his own pint. It bounced off his hand straight along, so horizontally, took out a second pint, and the woman whose pint it was reacted, taking out the pint next to her. Fabulous stuff. Full toss, driven by Parker. On debut, square of the wicket for a single. Will Parker, just 18 years old. He's had 2 first-class matches, but this is his debut in T20, 126 for 7.
Sounds like a Happy Gilmore putt shot. That bounced off this, ran down there, knocked.
It was spectacular. Not quite as spectacular as one I think Josh Butler actually caused at Old Trafford. Full, and again this sort of broom handle shot from Faulkner. Manages to take a ball wide of off stump. They're going to come back for 2. Really good running and alert thinking from young Will Parker. Wanted to get Faulkner back on strike as they went up to long on. Yes, there was I saw a lady in a white dress on the, is it called the Point at Old Trafford?
Yep.
The big sort of hospitality area. I think it might have been Josh Butler in that terrific innings he had against Yorkshire in Rose's match, I think it was, in the T20. Bartlett in, wide, full toss, slapped away, but brilliantly fielded, but diving extra cover. Keeps the score to just the 1 more, 127 for 9. He wasn't entirely watching the cricket, I don't think. The ball travelled up to the point. Clattered into her hand, red wine, white dress, total disaster. It looked like a scene from a Peckinpah movie.
Serves her right, I say.
Oh, harsh. Serves you right. You come to a cricket match with a white dress. Bartlett to complete the 18th over, short, cut away, but not with great timing by Parker. He's going to get one, throw comes in, coming back for a second. That again was marvellous work from a diving Parker. I think he's in. He felt he needed to get Faulkner back on strike for the start of the 19th over, and he was willing to sacrifice his wicket on debut. The callow 18-year-old who looks actually not all of his 18 years, I've got to say. Underneath that helmet, 131 for 7, the Hurricanes. 2 overs remain in their innings. Subpar, but maybe not as subpar as you might think. We shall see.
We shall, but the other day on this ground, maybe on this exact wicket, 150 was a winning score, and here with 2 overs to go at 131 for 7, they've given themselves, with James Faulkner at the crease on 19, an opportunity to try, if they get 20-25 runs off these 2 overs, go in with a bit of momentum, which we know in T20 cricket can count for so much in the small swings and the margins within games. You can go from being out of a game to in a game very quickly. So this momentum from the batting innings, sometimes you can take that into your first few overs of your bowling innings, and that's exactly what they'll be trying to do.
Wildermuth to bowl the penultimate over, and well, Faulkner's managed to swing that out to deep backward square leg. Heaslip does the fielding, bounced not far in front of him. It was in the air for quite a while, but again went quite flat, and Heaslip decided not to dive and risk his teeth. And there's one more to the total, brings Parker back on strike. And Faulkner's saying something to him, which is probably something along the lines of, if it goes through to the keeper, I'm running. Is that your interpretation of that?
My interpretation of that was he's just bowled a slower ball, right, like a off-cutter slower ball, because I think it looks as though a high percentage of the balls the Brisbane bowlers have bowled here have been slower balls.
What will Parker do with this? Well, he spoons it, shovels it really into the onside, just to the edge of the 30-yard circle. Momentarily, Parker wanted the second, but Faulkner said, no, he'll take strike. He has 20 from 13 with 10 balls remaining, and a couple of meaty blows here from Faulkner can get the Hurricanes up to 150 and beyond, but a lot rests on his shoulders.
Yeah, there might also have been a caveat in there saying, get me on strike, yeah. Whatever you do.
We're not running too. Wildermuth, right arm over the wicket to the right-handed Faulkner, who waits, pats the ground and thrashes this through mid-wicket and straight into the hands of Tom Cooper, who then drops the ball, having taken a really splendid running catch a couple of overs ago, running to his left, two-handed above his head. That one was, if anything, you'd think a little easier, although it was around about waist height, whether he just couldn't quite get his hands into the right place, and it sort of bounced off hand and thigh and rolled down in front of him. And to make matters slightly worse, they've come through for 2, which means that Faulkner is back on strike on 22, 135 for 7. Cooper gives a rueful expression, utters a rueful word as Wildermuth is into him. Faulkner, that's a brilliant bit of bowling, wide, very full, and Faulkner can get nothing on that, and examines the bottom of his bat through to the keeper, no run.
Good bowling. Faulkner wants anything length or slower ball to try and just heave away to the leg side. It's very agricultural the way he's going about trying to construct this innings, but they're going wide of the off stump out towards the wide line. Perfect Yorker length, gives him no opportunity to get under it. It's the perfect ball, but also the hardest one to execute.
First dot ball in 12 since the last wicket went down. Wildermuth in, and shorter this time. Faulkner pulls at this, takes one hand off the bat, and the ball rolls up to long on, where Cooper does the fielding and throws it sort of angrily to the keeper. One more though to the total means that Parker's on strike. Parker now, last ball of the 19th over, just has license, doesn't he? I mean, this is 2-4 outs or 6, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, you'd imagine so. I think the other day we saw the Brisbane Heat whilst Pearson was batting with the bowler that's right, yeah, and he faced 6 balls at the 19th over. The bowler faced 6 balls at the 19th over, which they lost by 2 runs.
Last ball of the over is driven nicely by Parker out to deep X cover. They're going to come back for 2? No, which means that actually Faulkner will not be on strike at the start of the 20th over. The Hurricanes 137 for 7, Parker 5, Faulkner 23.
But yeah, in that instance where Lachlan faced 6 balls in the 19th over, it meant that all the momentum of that innings was sucked out at that stage. So here, you'd have thought it was imperative that Faulkner got on strike for the first ball of the last over, but they didn't deem that necessary. But this first ball, rather than Parker trying to swing it away to the boundary, it would just be a case of getting Faulkner on strike, who's just changed his gloves after his top hand slipped off the bat at the last ball that he faced, where he hit it down to long on. Should have nice grip onto the handle to try and swing it away.
137 for 7. I can't tell if it's going to be enough or not. It's not been the highest scoring Big Bash. It's going to be Lewis Gregory. He's taken 3 for 11 so far, and he bowls a high full toss. I wonder if that's going to be no-balled. It is no-balled. That's not the start that Gregory would have wanted. He picked up those 3 crucial wickets which turned this innings. The Hurricanes were going along very nicely until the introduction of Gregory, and the Somerset man picked up 3, including 2 in 2. The 2 in 2 were Milan and Hanscom, were they not? That was quite the 2 in 2 at the time. So free hit. We start again. 138 for 7. Will Parker facing, who pulls, misses through to the keeper, and whoa, hang on. Has the umpire just raised his finger there?
Must be his 1 for the over. He's just quick and very.
But he raised it above his head. That's how Australians signal out. I don't understand what's going on here. Did he think? Now this is I've never seen this before. There's a pull. There was an appeal. Up went the umpire's finger. So is he out? He's not out. I am utterly confused. Parker's hit that in the air, heaving into the onside. The ball's rolled out to mid-wicket, and they've come through for a single. Bartlett does the fielding. Stephen Finn, what on earth have I just seen?
I'm utterly perplexed. He's missed the ball by about a foot. And what would usually be is the out signal. The umpire has wheeled his arm round to give the out signal, but none of the players have even responded to it and almost laughed. And
they've just said, da, da, da.
Yeah, they just said, we'll just crack on.
Extraordinary scenes. Gregory in. Faulkner whips this away out to wide long on. Cooper does the fielding. They come back for 2. That's good running from Faulkner. The throw came in at his end. I'm slightly distracted because I've never seen this before in my life. Faulkner 25, 141 for 7. Just to explain what happened, Parker was on strike. Gregory bowled the bouncer off the. It's a free hit. It was a free hit.
Yep.
So there was an appeal. Umpire gave him out, but of course then realised that because. So basically, the umpire had forgotten. Full. Whipped into the onside out to deep mid-wicket. They'll come through for a single. Still, I've never seen that either. Faulkner's at 26, 142 for 7.
No, he's done us all there.
Yeah.
Slightly silly now.
Yeah. We're up to, yeah. It's faintly humiliating and live on national radio. But it's the most extraordinary thing. There was an appeal. Up went the umpire's finger, and then he and all the players realised that he couldn't be out. 142 for 7, 2 balls left, and Parker manages to get this up and over and down to third man. That's a great shot, actually. It was short and wide, but he got the elevation, got underneath it, and chopped it over the third man boundary for 4. 146 for 7 with 1 ball left.
It's interesting in this scenario where Lewis Gregory first ball bowled the full toss that was called a no ball, which means that if he bowls one more, he's out of the attack and someone else has to finish the innings. So now predominantly since we've seen that first ball, he's not trusted his Yorker, he's gone into the pitch.
Here comes Gregory to complete the over, and that's driven by Parker to diving extra cover, who then parries the ball. So as a result they can get back for 2. I think if he'd missed that altogether, they would have gone to the wide long off. They pick up 2 off the last ball. 148 for 7. The Hobart Hurricanes end on Parker 12 from 9. James Faulkner, 26 from 18. It feels slightly under par, especially from where the Hobart Hurricanes were earlier, but we've seen targets of that sort defended at the Gabba. It'll be interesting. Stephen Finn.
It will. I think it's interesting that the other night we felt as though it was under par at the halfway stage the other night on this exact ground at 150, but they came out, the Adelaide Strikers came out, they took wicket in the first over. Danny Briggs bowled well. Rashid Khan, they had him up their sleeve to be able to try and take wickets through that middle period, and they managed to squeeze to the point where the Brisbane Heat looked as though they were dead and buried until they did finally try and salvage something. So it'll be interesting to see whether this innings and this second half of the game does take a similar course to that. But here the Hobart Hurricanes will be walking off knowing that they're going to have to do something pretty special and be really on it from ball one in the field, because a target such as this the back of it can be broken in the first 5 or 6 overs.
Well, the Brisbane Heat won the bat flip. They put the Hurricanes into bat. The first man to go was Ben McDermott. He should have gone earlier than he did. And it's the extraordinary drop by James Baisley, early in his innings. But it didn't prove too costly. He was eventually dismissed by Wildermuth, caught by Steketee for 16. Score was 23 for 1. Then a good partnership started to develop between Darcy Short and Dawid Malan, playing his first match in this year's Big Bash. Before, Darcy Short went off the bowling of Lewis Gregory coming into the attack, and it was the first of 3 wickets he picked up as he got rid of Short, then Malan, then Hanscom. 3 prize scalps to leave the Hobart Hurricanes reeling on 66 for 4. They ended 67 for 4 at the Bash boost point stage, so that's something we'll be keeping an eye out in the Brisbane Heat innings. And then the innings never really got going thereafter when the surge was taken. The surge ended up taking wickets. Mujib-ur Rahman bowling in the surge and ending up with figures of 1 for 26 in his 4 overs. Gregory, the pick of the bowlers, though, with 3 for 22. Steketee 2 for 36. Dan Lawrence just the 1 over, none for 10. Wildermuth 4 overs, 1 for 23. And Xavier Bartlett, none for 31. Faulkner ended 26 not out. Tim David made 21. Ingram 16. And Will Parker on debut, finishing unbeaten on 12, the 18-year-old. So the Hobart Hurricanes up near the top of the table have set the Brisbane Heat right down at the foot of the table and winless, 149 to get on the board in this year's Big Bash. We shall see how they get on after the break. But first, over the next few days, we'll be hearing from one of Test Match Special's favourite friends, Jim Maxwell. He joined Jonathan Agnew for a special podcast on Voices of the World. Of course, Jim has been the voice of Australian cricket for several decades now and has provided commentary for over 300 Test matches. In part 2 of this TMS podcast, Aggers and Jim discuss the voices that join them in the commentary box, becoming friends and synthetic cricket broadcasting. But first, commentary style.
There's 2 spots, aren't there? There's the action and the non-action. So make sure you get the action right and describe the moment, and then you work out the rest of it. But really, there was a more formality to the broadcasting of it, probably less humour, less sense of fun than has been developed. And I have to say that working with the BBC in 1983 when I came over for the World Cup made me realise that it's not all about the facts. It's a broadcast, and you need to embellish it with a narrative that has anecdotes, the colour, looking away to the crowd, as Blofeld was so good at. Yeah, you know the ropes as well as I do, but I was brought up in a very disciplined, formal structure of cricket broadcasting, where you were too frightened to open your mouth too often because you daren't put your foot in it. Now, of course, a lot of the broadcasts about, I'll have a crack at something here. I might put my foot in my mouth, but I'll have a lot of fun trying to take it out
yes.
too.
I think you're absolutely right, because certainly my early years were, I suppose I was just about the crossover, because I was, 10 years behind you. So the crossover was happening, led in our case, of course, by Brian Johnston. So he was that natural conversational companion on the radio. So he was very much of that style, but there's still a formality about the others, and certainly the way that Trevor Bailey and Fred Truman summarised in those days, was still along that formal route, although you could always wind Fred up a bit. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer that the sort of the formal, structured style, or do you like the looser way of doing it?
I like the slightly looser style, as long as you are on the moment, because you know what it's like in a game of cricket. It kind of ebbs and flows and has dull stretches where you can go off on a tangent and talk about all sorts of things. But there are still moments in the game, and you've had quite a few of those recently with Headingley and the World Cup final. We've got to be on the game. You just got to try and nail exactly what's happening out there, and don't get distracted by taking the conversation to a place that's not relevant to where you are at the moment.
And in comes Pat Cummins from the far end. He bowls to Stokes, who hammers it for 4! And stands there with the bat raised. I can't believe we've seen that.
I think it's a nice combination, and we're both very fortunate to have had people alongside us. And, I might say Geoffrey Boycott's one of those I really enjoyed working with. I think it's very important from the listener's viewpoint to have an expert that's got an opinion. And that's why you'll be interested in this. Ian Chappell is going to be working on ABC Radio this summer.
Brilliant. Well, that's brilliant news. Yeah. Well, as long as you can shut him up.
Well, it won't be able to with the commercial breaks that he's been used to, that's for sure.
It's funny, though. I mean, there's Geoffrey Boycott and Ian Chappell, and I dare say, I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but Ian Chappell, for me, growing up, was that Aussie who I just couldn't stand. You talk about 1972, there he was, the Aussie captain is there at slip, is chewing his gum, is sledging away. And I thought, I never thought I'd meet him, of course, let alone work with him, let alone go to his house and all that sort of stuff. And I suspect that Geoffrey Boycott was a sort of, that thorn in the side of you, and you thought, Geoffrey Boycott's boring, he's a blocker. And then doing this job, you suddenly meet these people and they become proper friends. It's all pinch yourself at times, don't you, that this was a person who you were watching as a kid, and now there you are, and he's your mate. Yeah,
well, I've gone the full circle with Chappell. When I started, he was still playing and I was interviewing him, and then he retired, and here and there I used to bump into him. And then we've turned a full circle here with Ian working on the ABC, because his grandfather, Victor Richardson, was one of the voices of the game prior to television, way back after the war in the early 50s, with Alan McGilvray and the England captain, Arthur Gilligan. Right. They were the three big voices on ABC radio in that period. And, of course, he remembers well listening to his grandfather, who was broadcasting at the time, I think, Ian made his debut as a test player in 1968. So it's an interesting a family connection there with voices, because Vic Richardson went back to the days of the synthetic tests, of course, which were the most extraordinary creation of ABC management in the 30s, when you couldn't get a decent shortwave signal from England, and they had to make it all up with the bonk of the pencil on the block of wood, and the effects brought up on a needle dropped on a record and all that sort of stuff, to convince everyone that what they were doing wasn't a real broadcast in the sense of them being at the ground, because it was so realistic.
It's a very ingenious scheme, as you'll see, for the atmosphere of a broadcast from the ground is retained, although the transmission is made in Australia on minute-to-minute information supplied by cable. And you'll be amused by the use of the commentator's pencil to denote bat meeting ball at the right moment in his commentary.
Ball into Bradman. It's a short ball. Bradman moves back and pulls scarcely past square leg. Hutton running round from deep fine leg has no chance. The ball goes under the ropes for another 4. That's 4 more to Bradman, taking his score to 97. A typical Bradman shot, giving the fieldsman no chance of saving the boundary.
All they'd get was a bit of paper which said B4F. And then they had to work out from that how Bradman hit a 4 of Farnes, that sort of thing. And they just created it all. So the imagination that those chaps had to pull it together was quite extraordinary.
It must have been exhausting, because it was during the night as well.
It was, and they're all dressed up. Yep, the whole thing was made up, and it was so genuine that they decided to let everyone know that, in fact, this is how they did it.
Barnes turns, runs in, bowling to Bradman. It's ball well pitched. Bradman moves forward, drives. Cotton at cover tries to cut it off, but is beaten by the pace of the ball, and it races away for another 4.
Very ingenious, isn't it?
That was Jim Maxwell talking to Jonathan Agnew about the pioneers of cricket commentary. It always gets me, that marvellous bit of synthetic commentary, because they did it, as you heard, by banging a block of wood against another block of wood to give you the sound of the bat on ball. But of course, they didn't always time it right. Talk about Bradman hitting the ball through the covers, and then you'd hear the bang of the tap of the block of wood on the block of wood. Stephen Finn has no idea what I'm talking about. But he's made his way back. The players are making their way back too. And we have got ourselves quite an interesting game here on 5 Live Sports Extra. It's the Big Bash, the Hobart Hurricanes against the Brisbane Heat at the Gabba. And if you were listening earlier, you'd have heard the tale of Hobart's innings, which was a curious one. It started off pretty well, in fairness. 54 for 1 after 7.3. In the context of this year's Big Bash, that was really set up for potentially 180, 190, maybe even 200, as we've seen some lower scores really in the first 10 overs, and sides really crack on in the last 10. But then an intervention from Somerset's Lewis Gregory, picking up 3 wickets in no time. At one point he had figures of 1.4 overs, 3 for 5, and was on a hat-trick, having dismissed Dawid Malan, playing his first game in this year's Big Bash, and Peter Hanscom of successive deliveries. In the end, Hobart limped. Maybe that's not entirely fair. 148 for 7 they made in the end. They were 67 for 4 after 10, so they got 81 in their last 10 overs. And as Stephen Finn has told us, this pitch at the Gabba, it's not the easiest for sides to score large, so we could yet have ourselves another nail biter. After yesterday's nail biter, I don't think my nerves will be able to take it, Stephen Finn. Christmas, I suppose, is a time of excitement and frivolity, but this is all getting a bit too much for a man of my disposition.
You'll have to have a lie down, I think, at some stage, but it certainly feels as though in the first innings we saw a high percentage from the seam bowlers of cutters and slower balls bowled, which says to me that even though sometimes it may look on here that it's an absolute belter, but that underneath it may not be such a great batting wicket. So we saw the other night 150 be a winning score here, and Brisbane Heat batting second then as well were put under immense pressure, especially when we thought that the Adelaide strikers didn't have enough. So a very similar scenario here, and the fact that there were a high percentage of slower balls bowled in that first innings suggests to me that it's not an absolute belter to bat on, so this could be a challenging total.
Well, I hope so, because I like the close games. We haven't had that many until recently. The last week or so there have been a few absolute corkers. We've also seen some good tail-end resistance. You saw it from Jimmy Pearson the other night. There was that highest Big Bash 10th wicket partnership involving Danny Briggs of all people, which was also in a losing cause. I wonder if we're going to see something similar today. How the Brisbane Heat would love a win. They so desperately need one. It feels to me in this year's tournament, Stephen, I don't know if you feel the same way, but we've got 3 sides down the bottom: Perth, Brisbane and the Melbourne Renegades, who have had some absolutely shocking results and performances. I think they would be honest enough to say. And with 5 teams going through, you cannot afford to get set adrift in the way that they are doing. Those 3 teams are getting a little bit set adrift.
No, it certainly feels like that way, doesn't it? But I also think that momentum comes into play. You don't often find that the team that comes out of the blocks from the very beginning, but winning every game, you don't find that they can sustain that over a long period of time. It's almost better to be the other way round, to have an absolute howler for the first 3 or 4 games and then slowly build confidence, momentum, and it means that when you get to the back end of the tournament, you found a method and you're playing your best cricket. Whereas if you come into the tournament and you're going absolutely great guns, I'm not saying that you want to try and lose the first few games, but I think it's better to have it the other way round. So we're still early days in the tournament. You definitely don't want to be cut adrift, but it wouldn't surprise me if one of those three teams at the bottom, who may feel slightly adrift at the moment, do find form, find a method, and then slowly and gradually work their way through the tournament and have more success.
Well, their rosters are filling up as well, aren't they, as players come out of quarantine and become available. There's that to consider, and you're spot on about that issue. I mean, the Hobart Hurricanes had that a couple of years ago, didn't they? They were riding high, winning every game, and then they were dumped out in the knockout stage. It seemed to be the catalyst for changing the knockout system that the Big Bash had, which is similar to the IPL, only even more intricate, because there are 5 teams that go through to the slightly more laborious. It's almost like the Only Connect. If you ever watch Only Connect, their knockout phase is very complicated. You get a lot of bites of the cherry. Here's James Faulkner to start the innings. Left arm over the wicket, starts with an horrendous wide, way through the offside, miles wide of Max Bryant. Bryant and Heaslett been at the top of the order for Brisbane, in and around the top of the order when Chris Lynn's not been playing, and even when he has for quite some time. After them, we've got English interest in Dan Lawrence, we've got Tom Cooper, we've got Jack Wildermuth, Lewis Gregory, Jimmy Pearson. So after seeing Pearson's in decent form, that's a handy top 7 they got there, as Faulkner is in, and that's punched off the back foot, but with no timing off the bottom of the bat. Short extra cover, next delivery, first legitimate delivery, and there's no run. That target 149, but we will also be keeping our eye on the Bash boost point. 68 required for that boost. It's not really a bonus, it's a boost. That's what it says.
I wonder if a team may try and revolutionise and they'll become the Bash Boost specialists and just try and win the Bash Boost in every game and get a point a game. I wonder if that gets you through.
Faulkner in, worked back to the bowler off the back foot by Bryant, and there's no run.
Could be a niche, couldn't it? If you got a point a game, would you make it through to the knockout phases?
Well, with 5 going through, you might be in with a chance.
There you go.
You get 14 points.
There you go. I'm willing and able to be a consultant if any of these Big Bash teams fancy it. I'd be the Bash Boost specialist consultant.
Something's been... Oh, yes. Faulkner is in. That's driven off the inside edge to short mid-wicket. And then the throw comes in at the non-striker's end. The ball's just flapping around all over the place. It's horrible to watch. They come through for a single on the overthrow. It was a very sharp bit of fielding as mid-wicket dived to his left and then released instantly at the non-striker's end, trying to catch Bryant out of his crease, or Heaslett out of his crease, I should say. But he missed, and then it wasn't backed up particularly well. A sprawling fielder, and the ball sort of gently dribbled beyond the 30-yard circle, and they got a very fussy single. I resent that. There's enough
Swift,
to talk about.
But unnecessary, I'd say, that bit of fielding.
When it says commentator's nightmare, you know, there's quite enough going on in T20 without that. Slip is in for the left-handed Heaslett, who drives into the offside straight to extra cover on the bounce, and there is no run. 2 without loss. This is the power play. Just to remind everybody, 4 overs of power play, then 2 overs of surge after the 10th over has been bowled. We've had no X-factor substitutions today, which surprised me somewhat, because the Hobart Hurricanes had in their roster Chemo Paul, and were 4 down after 10 overs. They could have X-factored him in, subbed him in if you like. Next ball driven by Heaslett. Good sprawling save by Parker, the 18-year-old on debut. Prevents more than a run. 3 without loss. Heaslett off the mark. It seemed tailor-made for that substitution, but then I suppose they were determined, the Hobart Hurricanes, for Will Parker to play. They'd given him his debut, wanted him to play, and then he's got to take
to get subbed out after 10 overs on your debut.
That would be cruel, wouldn't it? Full on the pads and worked nicely by Bryant down to deep backward square leg. It's running away towards the boundary. It's there quite slowly, but it will thud into the sponge. And 4 to the total at the end of the over. We've seen that so many times today. 4 off the last ball of the over. 7 without loss. The Heat needing 142 more runs for victory. Bryant 5, Heaslet has 1.
We do Faulkner going full there, looking for the LBW, maybe feeling as though Bryant slightly planted his foot across himself to play around that front pad. The ball did drift back in, more drift than swing, you'd say, and just manages to get a thick enough inside edge on it to carry it over the boundary on the deep square leg region. But early wickets are the order of the day here. If you're trying to defend 150, if you do let a partnership get going, it can become almost monotonous towards in the middle of the innings of the team just knocking it around, easing their way towards the target. So they need the early wickets, they need quick wickets to be able to put the Brisbane Heat under pressure.
7 without loss. End of that first over. Now who's going to open the bowling far end? It's going to be Scott Boland, who's got high cheekbones, let's put it that way. He's got a sturdy face and he bustles in. Right arm over the wicket to the left-handed Heaslet, and he gets a bit of pad on that, or thick outside edge. It runs to the wide first slip and there's no run. We've seen a lot actually happen with the new ball throughout the bash in a way that I mentioned it earlier. We don't see so much in other T20 franchises, or T20 leagues I should say. There's something about the Big Bash and the pitches that they play on. Michael Carberry was talking about this with us the other day, about how the Perth Scorchers, as Boland is in, and Heaslet just guides this nicely down to third man. There is a third man station ready and willing and able, and they pick up just the single. The plan for the Perth Scorchers was that, you know, to acknowledge that batting at the top of the order was quite difficult in the Big Bash, especially at the Wacker. And instead of sort of going hell for leather in that first 6 overs, they tended to sort of just not play entirely within themselves, but, you know, accumulate, try not to lose wickets, because you make it up at the back end more.
It does certainly feel like that here. I think the humidity in Brisbane makes the swing bowling conducive.
Bowler in, that's all. Lofted drive over long on for 6. That's a wonderfully easy looking shot from Max Bryant, who doesn't bother moving, just stands there, pushed his hands at the ball and hit it high in the air with no great flourish or flamboyance. Over long on for 6. That's a super shot.
He's just 6 metres. Stood there and admired it, hasn't he? It was a big, just ease, leant back, yeah, as you would, yeah. Leant back. I've got a good story. My favourite shot in my cricket career was actually at Brisbane. I'll run you through that one later.
Oh, please. Boland in, driven in the air, beautifully for 4. There was a bit of Chris Lynn in that shot, actually, as it went wide of the wide-ish mid-off. It was in the air for quite a while, but it was hit with such power by Bryant to run away to the boundary for 4.
It's an easy swing of the bat, and as we saw David in the Hobart Hurricanes innings, we saw him check his shot. Here there's no checking of the shot from Bryant whatsoever. It's a full flurry of the bat, an easy swing, and it absolutely races to the cover boundary.
I think this one might be a little shorter, is my guess. We've had 11 runs off the first 4 balls of this Boland over. Slip is still in, and well, no, it's full again. It's hit high in the air, hasn't quite got the same legs. It's going to plop over long off. Ingram runs back to field, and they'll come through for 2. It was in the air for a long time, and it sort of plugged on the outfield. 20 without loss. The Heat getting off to a rapid start here.
Yeah, he didn't quite get that one the same. It didn't sound right off the bat. But Boland, he's a big fella, persisting with the full length, hoping that his bounce will mean that even from a fuller length you can hit high up on the bat, especially if he's trying to target that straight boundary and hit one straight up in the air.
Here is Boland to complete the over, and it's pulled again, not with perfect timing, high in the air, out over mid-wicket. It's going to plug again. They'll come back for 2 as Will Parker does the fielding. End of a very expensive over. 22 without loss, 15 from that over. Bryant has 19, Heaslet has 2, and the Heat are off to just the start that they required. Now, tell us about this shot.
Well, I don't like talking about it.
I can tell
that much. But it was my ODI debut in 2011, and we got battered. I think we went for around 290 in our bowling innings, 300. It was me and Jimmy Anderson, the 10th wicket partnership, and we just said we're going to have some fun here because we need about 150 to win the game. And Shane Watson was bowling, and I gave myself a slight little bit of room and easily swung him to the sight screen. It hit the sight screen straight over his head.
Did it make that noise? Really
immensely satisfying, yeah.
Faulkner in, left arm over, has pulled out to deep square leg for 6. Wonderful shot, swivel pull from Heazlett. The Heat have started with fantastic intent here. They're hoping they can break the back of this chase early. They don't seem encumbered by nerves or a lack of confidence. They've just decided to take the bull by the horns, and well, that's a wonderful shot, and actually really well caught in the crowd by a man with a ginger beard. Actually, he looks a little bit, got a bit of Johnny Bairstow's to him.
Johnny Bairstow would not be happy with that, I don't think. I hope he's not listening or watching.
He'd be proud of the catch, I'm sure. 28 without loss. Heazlett facing up to the left arm, Faulkner, and it's wide and swiped at, really. Now, as the umpire, the umpire decided that's a wide. It's a cruel game. It's a cruel game, cricket, but I think that's probably just about fair. It was around about the wide line on the offside. Yes, I think we can give him that. Heazlett didn't move his feet. He stayed planted on leg stump, wafted his bat at it, missed it. Just because the ball goes sort of under the bat doesn't mean it's not still a wide. I mean, it did when we were kids, but that's all changed now. There's Faulkner in again. That's driven. It's beautifully timed, but straight to short extra, and there's no run. 29 without loss. Batsmen are timing it much better than Hobart's top order managers, aren't they?
Yeah, they're playing fluently here. As fluent as we've seen anyone in the 2 games that I've watched at the Gabba so far. This is as fluent as any top order batsman has looked, but I think it's quite notable in the fact that the 3 previous innings that we've seen at this ground, people have been quite tentative when trying to hit the ball. These guys are just standing there playing straight back shots and just hitting through the line of the ball, and they're hitting it blooming hard.
Faulkner bowls a full toss, which has been swiped into the crowd at deep mid-wicket. It was a poor ball from Faulkner. And if you're bowling left arm to a left-hander and you bowl a knee-high full toss to a man who's seeing it well, it was likely to get the treatment. Was that the attempted back of the hander? Was that one?
Attempted back of the hand, 75 metre 6, but it was knee-high, maybe even higher than that. Top of the stump's length, it swung away easily. I think it's quite notable here that in 2.3 overs, that's the first change of pace that we've seen from the Hobart Hurricanes.
35 without loss, and that's driven again gloriously up and over extra cover for 4 more. The Hurricanes are under the pump here. The Heat 39 without loss. That is the 3rd 4. We've had 3 6s already, so 6 boundaries in the first 16 legitimate deliveries. We were talking about how in the Big Bash you